Commission is ready. Masukumen sonke.
Commission resumes. Generaal Major is nog steeds oneerd. Ms. Barnes,
General still under
do you
oath.
wish to proceed with your cross-examination?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, General.
Good morning.
General, when we left off on Friday, you said that on the 16th of August 2012, Mr. Matunjwa had in fact been given a police escort to go to the Kopi. Is that what you said?
Uthemos ngelixesha wayapha entabeni nge-16 kaAugust umhlekazi uMathunjwa kwakho amapolisa athunyelwa ukuba amkhaphi kuyapha entabeni kunjalo General.
Voorsitter, Brigadier Tseluani was besig om te reël vir sodanige begeleiding, maar meneer Matunjwa het vertrek op sy eie.
Chairperson Brigadier Silwana was still busy making those arrangements, but Mr. Matunjwa left on his own.
Wayesexakekile ke yena uBrigadier Tseluani esenza amalungiselelo ngelixesha wayehamba yedwa siya pha umhlekazi Mathunjwa.
What arrangements precisely was Brigadier Tsilawani making?
Ngawaphi la malungiselelo wayewenza yena uBrigadier Tseluani?
Voorsitter, hy het gereël met kaptein Seleke wat die bevelvoerder was van die lede van mobiele operasies om begeleiding te doen, en hy het ook gereël vir 'n Lonmin bussie wat beskikbaar was om dan die delegasie na die Kopi toe te neem.
Chairperson, he was arranging with Captain Sileke of the mobile unit for the transportation, and there was also a Lonmin bus that was going to transport the delegation.
Wayesenza amalungiselelo ke ethetha kunye no Captain Seleke kwaye kwakhona ibhasi ke iyase Lonmin apho kwakuzohamba kukhwele abathunywa kuyo.
Was Mr. Matunjwa, to your knowledge, informed that he should wait because a police escort was being organized for him?
Waxelela umhlekazi uMathunjwa into yoba makalinde nangoba kwenza amalungiselelo into bazokhatshwa ngamapolisa na.
Voorsitter, ja, sover ek kan onthou het generaal Mpembe vir hom gesê dat ons besig is om te reël.
Chairperson, as far as I know, General Mpembe had told him that such arrangements are being made.
Xa ndisakhumbula kakuhle wamxelela umhlekazi uGeneral Mpembe into yokuba makalinde kukho amalungiselelo enziwayo.
Ms. Barnes, forgive my asking you a question which shows my ignorance. Which of his two visits to the Kopi on the 16th are you talking about? The first or the second? Or does it apply to both, the question?
First visit, Chair.
Buzwa ngelixesha wayesiya ukuqala phaya entabeni umhlekazi uMathunjwa.
Because, General, Mr. Matunjwa gave detailed evidence on this aspect, and he said, in summary, that he repeatedly asked first for a SABC vehicle to take him to the Kopi, and this was not provided, and that thereafter he asked to at least be provided with a police escort to the Kopi, and that was also not provided. That evidence was not challenged in this commission.
Uthetha loo nto ngoba kaloku ngelixesha wayenokubungqina bakho umhlekazi uMathunjwa wacela into yokuba kaloku ahambe ngenqwelo yamapolisa, loo nto zange yenzeke. Nangeli xesha ke okwesibini ecela ukuba phofu bamkhaphe wona amapolisa, naloo nto zange yenziwe. Kwaye kule nto wayithetha akho mntu wamphikisayo umhlekazi uMathunjwa ngexesha wayenokubungqina.
Voorsitter, daar was sodanige reëlings getref. Die voorvalleboek inskrywing wat ook gemaak is deur Brigadier Tseluani verwys daarna dat dan die res van sy delegasie van AMCO het agtergebly en dat dan sodanige begeleiding aan hulle gegee was nadat hy reeds vertrek het.
These arrangements were being made, Chairperson, in the occurrence register. Brigadier Tseluani made mention of the fact that the escort was to be provided. That the escort was provided to the rest of the AMCO delegation.
Loo nto leyo phofu ke wayibhala nakwincwadi yeziganeko yena uBrigadier Tseluani apho wayisithi into yoba kuzokhutshwa ke ngenqwelo apho abathunywa beAMCO bazawukhwela khona.
Could you repeat the translation, please? I didn't follow that at all.
The translation was that Brigadier Tseluani had, in his occurrence book, made note of the fact that arrangements were made and that transport was provided that escorted, that took the delegation, the AMCO delegation.
So are you saying that a police escort was in fact provided to the AMCU delegation?
Uthi ngamanye amazwi ke ngoku abathunywa beAMCU bona kwabakho amapolisa abakhapha asiwabona kubo into abakhaphe.
Aldes die voorvallenboek inskrywing van Brigadier Giuliani, maar uitgesluit meneer Matunwa.
In the occurrence book registration by Brigadier Tsilwane, but excluding Mr. Matunja.
Wabhala loo nto kwincwadi yesiganeko kodwa ke zangabhale ke ngomhlekazi uMathunjwa.
Do you have any explanation for why Mr. Matunjwa's evidence on this aspect was not challenged in this commission?
Ms. Barnes, that's not how you ask the question. The question you ask is, did you hear the evidence being given? Did you draw it to council's attention? And then you won't go on from there. You just can't ask the question like that, like shooting into the bush.
As the chair pleases. So were you aware of Mr. Matunjwa's evidence on this aspect that he gave in this commission?
Kwezinto endigqibo uzithetha ngobungqina buka Mr. Mathunjwa wena uke waziva ezo zinto ezo?
Voorsitter, nee in terme se getuienis nie. Ek dink hy het vermelding gemaak in sy verklaring daarvan.
Not in terms of his evidence, Ms. Chairperson, but I think he made mention of that in his statement.
Khange ndibuve ubungqina bakhe kodwa ngicimba kwintetho yakhe uyithethile into lolo hlobo.
Did you see Mr. Matunjwa's statement?
Uke wabona na i-statement sakamhlekazi uMathunjwa?
Dit is korrek, voorsitter.
It's correct, Chairperson, yes?
Ewe kunjalo sihlalo.
And you'll agree with me then that he deals with this aspect in detail in paragraph 69 to 72 of his statement. Would you like to have a look at that?
Uvumela nami ndikupha kwi-statement sakhe ukusukela kule paragraph ibizwa 69 utsho ku-72 uthetha ngazo ezo zinto ezo. Uyafuna uyifunda na?
It's exhibit double N, I beg your pardon.
For Nelly.
That's correct.
Did you read that statement before Mr. Matunjwa came and gave evidence? It was distributed beforehand.
Voorsitter, nee, ek het dit nou gelees met die beskikbaarstel van die bewysstukke pertinent toe advokaat Baans aangedui het dat dit een van die bewysstukke is waaruit hulle vrae gaan vra aan my.
No, Chairperson, I was given this together with the bundle of documents when Ms. Barnes indicated that these were some of the documents she's going to refer to.
Ndandinikwe ke lo maxwebhu ngeli xesha ndandixelela into yobana ke ngoku xa endibuza imibuzo uzobe ebhekisa kuwo yena uadvocate Barnes.
General, what's peculiar is how on Wednesday, the 15th of August, when Mr. Matunjwa pleaded with SABC to be allowed to address the strikers from outside the Nyala, he was not allowed to do so. And yet, the following day, on the 16th of August, he was allowed to go to the Kopi without a police escort, let alone a Nyala. Would you like to comment on that?
Into endixela ke ukuke usinika amagqaba ntshintshi ngayo leyo kuba ke nge-15 kaAgasti ngeli xesha wayebongoza into yoba makaye phaa entabeni okanye athetha nabantu ngaphandle kwehipo zangavunyelwe kodwa ngemini lendalo yavunyelwa into yobana ke makahambe aye entabeni engahambi kunye namapolisa amkhaphayo. Awufuna ukuba usinika amagqaba ntshintshi ngaloo nto leyo?
Voorsitter, ek het my getuienis verduidelik dat die 15de was 'n polisie gereelde besoek in terme van die versoek van generaal Mpembe.
Mr. Chairperson, I gave evidence that the 15th, this was an arranged police visit arranged by General Mpembe.
Bendisendichazile kaloku into yokuba olo tyelo lwabo phaa entabeni nge-15 yinto eyathi yahlelwa okanye yalungiselelwa nguGeneral Mpembe.
Voorsitter, en ook dat op die 16de het ons sodanige begeleiding gereël. Die delegasie het daar gestaan en wag sodat die reëling getref kan word vir die voertuie. En meneer Matunjwa het op sy eie het hy vertrek.
And on the 16th, arrangements were being made. The delegation was waiting out there. Matunjwa decided to leave on his own, Mr. Chairperson.
Kwakwenziwe ke ukamalungiselelo ke ukuba ke ngoku uzawuhamba kunye nabathunywa nge-16 kodwa ke endandibambe nabathunywa waye wazihambela yedwa umhlekazi uMathunjwa.
And you conceded on Friday, General, that you knew Mr. Matunjwa was going to give bad news to the strikers and that you knew it was going to upset them. Was it not irresponsible for the police to let Mr. Matunjwa go to the Kopi without a police escort in those circumstances?
Uthi ke ngoku awusoli mapolisa ngento eyenzekayo ngenxa yento bayeka umhlekazi uMathunjwa ahambe eyedwa nangona babesazi into ba uyowunika abantu indaba ezimbi.
Voorsitter, ek het ook getuig dat meneer Mathunjwa het aangedui dat hy weet wat vir hom as 'n leier verwag word.
I also said, Mr. Chairperson, that Mr. Mathunjwa was told what it is expected of him as a leader.
Benditshilo into ba kaloku waxela umhlekazi uMathunjwa ba kulindelwe intoni kuye njengenkokheli.
En dat die situasie sodanig sal hanteer, maar ek het ook gesê dat in retrospek is dit iets wat die polisie sou moes gedoen het om extra moeite te doen om weer eens te vergader met Lonmin.
But I mentioned again, Mr. Chairperson, that in retrospect, I think the police should have done some extra means to have a discussion with Lonmin.
Bensenditshilo kaloku into ba namapolisa kolinye icala nabo ngebenze inzame into yokuba babambe ingxoxo kunye nabaselonmin.
Perhaps you'll agree with me then in my next proposition, General, that what had in fact happened on the 16th was not that negotiations between the parties had deadlocked. All that had happened was that Lonmin had reneged on its earlier commitment, and in those circumstances the police could and should have taken steps to get the process back on track. You agree with me in relation to that proposition, at least in retrospect?
Sorry, Mr. Commissioner. There's simply a version of Mr. Mathunjwa that Lonmin reneged on the agreement. The question can't be phrased in such a way.
Ms. Bonds, it's a controversial question as to whether one of the matters on which we'll have to make a finding in the end, to whether Lonmin did really renege on an undertaking. But the police, of course, according to what we've heard, didn't go back to Lonmin and say, this is what Mr. Mathunjwa alleges, is it correct? So presumably your point is based upon what the information available to the police. So if you put the proposition in that way, I think you may find that there won't be an objection from the side of Lonmin.
Yes, Chair. I'm happy to put it on the basis that Mr. Mathunjwa informed the police that Lonmin had reneged on their undertaking. The proposition really, General, is that there wasn't truly a deadlock on the morning of the 16th. There was information that Lonmin reneged, and steps could have been taken to deal with that.
It's information that Mr. Mathunjwa gave. Whether Lonmin, yes, I see. Whether it's true or not is another matter.
I accept
that's not
that,
relevant
Chair.
for your question.
Indeed.
Umbuzo abuzwa ke wona into ba lento ke yokuba wathi umhlekazi uMathunjwa ababona baselonmin bayarhoxa kulento babeseyithembisile na kufuna uqondo into ba yinyani naleyo na.
Voorsitter, ek net sê ja dat ek nie vertroud was met die samesprekings tussen meneer Mathunjwa en Lonmin nie.
I must just say that I did not know what the discussion was between Mr. Mathunjwa and Lonmin.
Khange ndibe nalwazi ke ngengxoxo zaziphakathi komhlekazi uMathunjwa kunye neLonmin.
Maar die verbreking in die onderhandeling was ook tussen die polisie onderhandelaars en die vyf leierskap of die 5 persone in terme van die klein groepie leiers. Daar was ook geen verdere nie, die pogings van die onderhandelaars om verdere onderhandeling met hulle te bewerkstellig het ook nie geslaag nie.
The deadlock was between the SAP negotiators and the 5 that were chosen by the strikers, and no further endeavor was made by them to communicate.
Ke ukuphanza kwengxoxo kwakuphakathi kwabamapolisa benza uthethathethwano kunye nesasihlanu ke selaqela labantu abambalwa emva koko zange kuphinde kwenziwe eminye imizamo.
But you agree with me that there'd been great hope the night before, on the evening of the 15th, that Mr. Mathunjwa might be able to assist in bringing a negotiated solution to bear, correct?
Uvumela nami into yokuba ke ngokuhlwa ke ngalamhla we-15 kwakusekho ithemba into yokuba kaloku uzawuza nesombululo esawuba luncedo yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa. Kunjalo?
Die hoop was op meneer Mathunjwa om die groepering te oortuig om hulle wapens neer te lê.
The hope was that Mr. Mathunjwa would be able to persuade the people to put down their arms.
Ithemba lalikho lelokuba kaloku uzawukwazi ukubongoza abantu yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa bakwazi ukubeka phansi izixhobo zabo.
I put it to you, General, for your comment, because this is what we're going to argue. That the real reason that SAPS did not bother to contact Lonman on the morning of the 16th or bother to provide Mr. Matunjwa with a police escort was because SAPS was no longer interested in facilitating a negotiated solution, because SAPS had already at that stage decided to go tactical. Would you like to comment on that?
Ke ngoku into endizayithetha kuwe ngoku nesizawuyitsho thina kwingxoxo-mpikiswano into yokuba into yenza into yoba kaloku isapsi ingabi namdla wokuba izoba nonxibelelwano okanye udliwondlewe kunye nolomini into yokuba kaloku yayingesenamdla waloo nto leyo ngoba yayiseyithatha isigqibo soba izawuthatha inyathelo lokusebenzisa umthetho okanye indlela yabo yobuchule. Ufuna uphendula kuloo nto leyo?
Voorsitter, dit is nie waar nie. Die polisieonderhandelaars het steeds probeer om verder onderhandelinge voor te sit.
That is not true, Chairperson. The police negotiator was still taking steps to facilitate discussions.
Ayiyo nyani leyo ngoba abayenza ukuthetha nabamapolisa babesenza ke inzame zokubona into yoba ingxoxo ziyaqhubekeka.
Polisie het wel begeleiding gereël. Die bevestiging daarvan is dat die res van die AMCU-delegasie agtergebly het. Meneer Matunjwa het op sy eie besluit om te onttrek.
The police made arrangements for the transportation of the AMCU delegation. Mr. Matunjwa decided to leave on his own.
Amapolisa enza amalungiselelo into yoba abathunywa be-AMCU bakwazi ukuba bakhwele kodwa wazithathela isigqibo sokuba hambe yedwa yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa.
Daar is 'n voorvalleboek inskrywing tot die effek van die begeleiding en dan Brigadier Tseloane en ek is seker ook kaptein Seleke sal sodanige reëlings kan bevestig.
There is an entry in the O-book and to this effect, Brigadier Tseloane, if called, or Captain Seleke would be able to give evidence in this respect.
Ezo zinto zibhaliwe kwincwadi yesiganeko kwaye ke uba ngabizwa yena uBrigadier Tseloane okanye umhlekazi uCaptain Seleke bazawunika ubungqina obunjalo.
Ms. Mother, I take it you have that reference. It's note entry number 1004 in Exhibit FFF25. And it is said that the Lonman branded combi was driven to the Kopi with the other members of AMCU, and Captain Seleke of Mobile Operations escorted them. Now, do your clients deny that? Because, I mean, the other members of AMCU deny that they were driven to the Kopi at around about 11:55 in the Lonman branded combi, and that Captain Seleke of Mobile Operations escorted them, because that's the basis, as I understand it, of this evidence.
Sandofundelwa ke ngophakathi kwe-F25 into yoba kubhaliwe kaloku into yoba kaloku lamalungu eAMCU akhwela phaa kwikhombi yaselonmini bekhatshwa ngasemva nguCaptain Seleke kodwa bonaba bayayiphika loo nto leyo.
I was really just cross-examining in relation to what had happened in relation to Mr. Matunjwa.
Uthi zake kwizinto ke ezibhekisela okanye ezichaphazela umhlekazi uMathunjwa.
General, you've conceded earlier in your evidence that the decision to go tactical had been taken before 1:30 on Thursday, the 16th of August. Is that correct?
Uthi ke ngoku isigqibo sokuba kungenwe kunyathelo elamapolisa azosebenzisa ke ngoku ubuchule babo kuphulo labo babesethatha isigqibo ngaphambi kwecala emva kwentsimbi yokuqala ngalalwesine. Injalo loo nto?
Voorsitter, ja, dit was tydens die oordrag deur die oorhoofse bevelvoerder generaal Mpembe aan die provinsiale commissaris generaal Mbombo.
It was carried over by the overall commander to the provincial commissioner at that time.
Into ke ngoku uGeneral Mpembe awathi yena wayixelela uGeneral Mbombo ngela xesha.
You said that it was as a result of that decision being made, that is the decision to go into the tactical phase, that the JOCCOM meeting was held at 1:30 on the 16th of August, correct?
Uthi kwakungenxa yeso sigqibo eso esenza igqibile into yoba kubekho laa ntlanganiso yabanjwayo yeJOCCOM ngecala emva kwentsimbi yokuqala. Kunjalo?
Dit is correct.
That's correct.
Kunjalo.
What time was the decision made? Was it before 1 o'clock? Was it before 12 o'clock?
Sathathwa nini ke sisigqibo? Kwakungaphambi kwentsimbi ye-12 emini maqanda okanye phambi kwentsimbi yokuqala?
Voorsitter, ek kan nie presies die tyd onthou nie, maar dit moes waarskynlik so in die omgewing van 13, 15 daar rond gewees het.
I cannot remember with precision the time, Mr. Chairperson, but it was in the region of about 13, 15 or therearound.
Andisalukhumbuli elona xesha bakungabane xesha kodwa ndingathi mhlawumbi kwakupha ndingathi umkhono emva ngomkholo emva kwentsimbi yokuqala.
You've testified that one of the reasons why it was considered necessary to go into the tactical phase on the 16th of August was because threats had been made to the police. Is that correct?
Uthi ke esinye sesizathu esenza into yoba amapolisa baye kwelaa nyathelo lokuba basebenzise ke ngoku ubuchule babo kumsebenzi wabo into yoba amapolisa ayesegrogrisiwe kunjalo?
Een van die redes, dis korrek, voorsitter.
One of the reasons, that's correct, Chairperson.
Yayisesinye sezizathu eso.
Yes, one of the reasons. If you could go to Exhibit L, the police presentation, to slide 192.
Ubungaya kweli xwebhu lamapolisa ke libizwe L kumfanekiso opha ku-192.
This is a reference here to two threats that were allegedly made by Mr. Noki against the police. You'll see that the first threat is recorded as having been made at 15, well, in fact, you need to read the paragraphs in that slide the other way around. The first threat is recorded as having been made at 1340, and the second threat is recorded as having been made at 1540. So those threats were made after the decision to go tactical had already been taken. Is that correct?
Xa sijonga pha siyabona into yoba ke ukuzimbini izigrogriso ezenziwa ngumfunukwi eyokuqala ke kuthiwa ixesha elibhaliweyo kwakungemizuzu engamashumi 20 phambi kwentsimbi yesibini enye ke ngoku kwakungemizuzu emashumi 20 ke phambi kwentsimbi yesine loo nto yenzeka sesithathiwe isigqibo phaa kwintlanganiso kunjalo?
Dit is korrek, maar daar was ook 'n dreigement gewees min of meer soos ek het onthou 11:20 van die oggend van die 16de.
Chairperson, this is correct, yes, but as far as I remember, there was a threat made at about 11:20 on that day.
Weyinyani leyo kodwa xa ndikhumbula ukuhle sikhona isigrogriso ke senziwayo ke ngemizuzu engamashumi 20 emva kwentsimbi yeshumi elinanye phaa nge-16.
That's dealt with in the currents book, exhibit FF25, as entry 998 of 1120, which says, situation report, Papa 1 reported that the group were moving towards the Inyala. The group leader asked the police official to remove their wires, and he said he's not going to ask them again as he's also aggressive. That's the note to which you are referring. So it does appear as if, if one reads the Exhibit L, the sliding exhibit L to which you've referred, Ms. Barnes, 192, together with this entry in the currents book, there were basically three threats. At 11:20, he asked them to remove the wires, but he's not going to ask them again, in an aggressive tone, apparently. Then at 13:40, he said, according to slide 192, you can see the SABC are making ready for war, and he said to Lieutenant Colonel McIntosh, we must sign a paper so the world can see how we kill one another today. And then it looks as, around about 1540, after Brigadier Karlitz gave Colonel Makubela the instruction or the command to start with the uncoiling of the barbed wire, that Mr. Noki came forward. Once the first Nyala started uncoiling the wire, came to the front window of the negotiation in Nyala and said, quote, these hippos would not leave this place and you will all die today, and that he would not be returning again. So those are the three incidents to which you're referring. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was drawing attention specifically to the two threats mentioned in slide 192, and I just wanted to get the witness to confirm that these would not have been taken into account in deciding that it was necessary to go into the tactical phase on the 16th of August. Is that correct?
Bendisamfundela ke ezazimbini ke ngokwesigrogriso kodwa ke bengenoba zizathu ezenza into yoba nika amapolisa athathe inyathelo alithathayo ke kuphulo lawo inyani kunjalo?
Dis korrek, voorsitter.
That is correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo sihlalo.
You could go still in Exhibit L to slide 189.
Basingaya kwimfanekiso ke o number lo yawo ingu 189.
You'll see there's a reference in that slide both to the mood of the strikers changing and also to the fact that the media were withdrawing in fear of their safety. And those events are recorded as having taken place at 25 to 4 on the 16th of August, correct?
Siyabona ke into ebhaliweyo ngemizuzu ngamashumi 25 ngaphambi kwensimbi yesine apho kuthiwa ke ngoku abantu kulapho baqalisa ukutshintsha khona nangeli xesha ke aba bona babethatha ividiyo baye basuka khona apho uyayibona loo nto leyo?
Korrek, voorsitter.
Correct, Chairperson. Yes.
Uyayibona kunjalo sihlalo?
So those events would also not have been factors which you took into account in deciding that it was necessary to go tactical on the 16th, correct?
Ezi ke ayizizathu endingathi zizwe ezanenza into yoba ningene kwela nyathelo lokuba amapolisa enza iphulo lawo nge-16 kunjalo?
Voorsitter, dit is korrek, maar daar was ook 'n ander geval geweest waar die polisie video operateurs gedreig was en dan ook op 10:40 op slide 156 wat daar verwysend is na die gemoed van die stakers.
Chairperson, yes, there was a time when the police video recorders were also threatened, and at 10:40, as it is recorded there, there was mention of the mood of the protesters changing.
Ewe ke ngoku loo nto ibhaliwe kuthiwa yenzeke imizuzu emashumi 2 phambi kwentsimbi yeshumi 11 kulapho kwakubhalwe khona into yoba imo nabantu indlela imbonakalo babeyiyo baye batshintsha kwaye loo nto ifumaneka phaa kwislide esi sibhalwe 156.
If you go, General, to slide 170, you'll see that that deals with the withdrawal of the video operators. And you'll see that that took place at 1 on the 16th.
Uba ukuya ke ngoku apha kwislide esi singu-170 uyabona uba le nto yokususwa kwaba basebenza ngevidiyo emapoliseni yenzeka emva kwemizuzu engamashumi 25 emva kwentsimbi yokuqala.
Dit is korrek, voorsitter.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo sihlalo.
So it seems that that also took place after your decision had already been made, correct?
Ingathi nalena yenzeka senithathile isigqibo senu.
Dit is korrek, voorsitter.
Correct. Correct,
Kunjalo.
Chairperson.
General, another reason you gave for your decision to go tactical on the 16th of August was that you said not even the president of AMCU could persuade his members to lay down their arms, correct?
Uthi ke ngoku esinye ke ngoku isizathu senza noba maningene kwelo nyathelo lenu into yokubana no-president lo we-AMCU woyisakala ukubongoza abantu babeke phantsi izixhobo kunjalo?
Korrek, voorsitter.
Correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo sihlalo.
You were, in that regard, operating on the assumption that the majority of the strikers were AMCU members, because that's what you'd been told by Lonman. Is that correct?
Ngenxa yento yoba nanixelwe yilonimi into yoba uninzi lwabantu yayingabantu be-AMCU ngoku yonke into naniyenza ninaloo nto leyo apha engqondweni nicinga uba ngabantu be-AMCU bonke aba uninzi lwabo?
Apologies, Chairperson. Can you just repeat the question?
Cela uphinde umbuzo.
I said, in holding that view, you were presumably operating on the assumption that the majority of the strikers were AMCU members, because that's what you'd been told by Lonman. Would that be correct?
Into ke ngoku naniseniyazi nicingela uba injalo yile nanixelwe yilonimini into yokuba uninzi lwabantu phaa yayingamalungu e-AMCU kunjalo?
Voorsitter, ja, maar ook in terme van die intelligensieverslae en dan ook die feit dat alhoewel daar talle NUM-lede teenwoordig was, het ons het verstaan dat die meeste van hulle in die proses is om oor te gaan vanaf NUM na AMCU in terme van lidmaatskap.
Chairperson, yes, we also had information gathered by our intelligence that though that many of the members of NUM were moving over to AMCU at the time. That information we had received through our intelligence.
Ewe kodwa nenye ingxelo sayifumana kwiintloli zethu into yokuba uninzi lwabantu ayayingamalungu enum ayengena apha ke ngoku kwi-AMCU ngela xesha.
Voorsitter, dan die pertinent verwysing na bewystuk TT5 wat daar telkens verwysend is selfs so vroeg as Februarie dat AMCU vermoed was dat hulle pertinent betrokke was.
Also looking at Exhibit TT5, Chairperson, already in February there was mention of AMCU's involvement
In this
in
intimidation and strikes.
the intimidation and the strikes.
Ke naxa sijonga phaa ku-35 njengoba kubhalwe ngoFebruwari into yoba kwakuthiwa into yobana yona yayibandakanyeka i-AMCU kuqhankqalazo ke nakwizirhogriso zazisenziwa.
Maar pertinent dan ook die ontvangs wat die onderskeie presidente gehad het op die 15de in terme van dat die president van Noem verwerp was en dan AMCU verwelkom was.
And pertinently, the reception that was received by the two presidents, as we know that the NUM president was rejected and the AMCU president was welcomed.
Sabona ke ukunendlela ke za president zimbini zamkeleka ngayo into yokuba enye le yenum zange yamkeleke kodwa omnye lo wamkeleka ngezandla ezishushu.
Now, General, if you would go, Slin, Exhibit L to slide 161.
Ungaya kulixhophe lamapolisa ke ukupha ku L161.
You'll see that Mr. Matunjwa's first address finished at 1:25. Do you see that?
Ngeli xesha ke wayithetha kokuqala umhlekazi uMathunjwa wagqiba nge-1:25. Uyayibona loo nto?
Dit is korrek.
That is correct.
Kunjalo.
Ekskuus voorsitter, ek is nie seker of
Sorry,
sy
Chairperson.
toespraak klaargemaak het nie, want die inskrywing meld net the leadership of ANCO stated that they were going to speak to the mines management.
That is what is written there, Chairperson. I don't know whether at that time he had completed his address.
Yabona pha kubhalwe into yoba ke inkokheli yamkho yathi izawuthetha nabaphathi belonmini. Andiyazi into yoba ke ngoku wayequkumbela intetho yakhe ngelo xesha.
What is stated there, at least in the last line of that paragraph, is that the leadership of AMCU left the scene, that is the scene of the first address, at 1:25. They went in order to go and find the police in order to report back. You agree with me?
Into ebhalwe apha kaloku kuthiwa ngeli xesha ke kwabaphathi bona kanye iinkokheli zenu mzazihamba bayofuna ke ngoku aba bamapolisa kwenzela uba bazokwazi ubanika ingxelo ngelo xesha elo likhanganyiweyo apha. Uvumela nam kuloo nto leyo?
Voorsitter, ja, die laaste sin dui aan dat die leierskap van AMCU het die toneel verlaat.
Chairperson, yes, the last sentence indicates that the leadership of AMCU then left.
Ewe iyatsho ke ngoku isivakalisi sokugqibela into yoba ke ngoku iinkokheli yona yenum kanye ze-AMCU phofu zahamba.
So at that stage, there had certainly not been any feedback from AMCU to the police about that first address, correct?
Ngoku ke ngela xesha kwakungekho kabikho ngxelo iphuma kwi-AMCU eya emapoliseni ngela xesha kunjalo?
Voorsitter, ek weet nie of daar enige so oordrag plaasgevind het nie.
I don't know, Chairperson, if any such briefing, such report back was made.
Andinalwazi nokuba kwakhe kwabakho ingxelo lolo hlobo ekhutshwayo na.
You seem to have got a report about what the AMCU people, as they described in the occurrence book, had said. Because you look at entry 1010, which is 1325, in Exhibit FF25, it appears that P1 gave a report as to what had happened and what AMCU had said just before they left. Is that correct?
Xa ijongile ke phaa ku-FF25 ingathi kuyabonakala into yoba ikhona ingxelo eyakhutshwa apho kwakuthiwa ivela kwi-AMCU.
Voorsitter, dis reg, daar is so 'n inskrywing en 'n terugvoer.
There is, yes, Chairperson, there is such a report back made.
Ewe
Such an
ikhona
entry
ke
is there.
ingxelo ke
AMCU hadn't reported back to you. You already knew from P1. Who's P1 again?
College.
So you already knew from Brigadier College what had happened there.
Uyatsho ke ngoku phaa usandochaza ngoku into yoba lo Papa 1 ke nguBrigadier Khalid.
Voorsitter, ja, die terugvoer wat hulle gegee het is in terme soos daar verskillende sprekers was. Ek dink daar was 5 of 6 sprekers gewees en dat die president was die laaste spreker.
Yes, Chairperson, there were about 5 speakers or so. The president was the last of the speakers.
Ewe kwakukho izithethi ke ezintlanu ke owogqibela wathethayo ke yayingupresident lowo.
But it goes further than that, because it says AMCU promised that they'll be back after half an hour with the mine management, because the group are not satisfied. So, at the moment when you were told that AMCU are leaving and hoping to come back in half an hour with the mine management, you decided to implement the plan. I don't quite understand that.
Into endingayaziyo ke ngoku endibhedayo into yokuba kuthiwe kuzawungena baqhubeke ngesicwangciso nangona wayethe yena ke ngoku okanye inkokheli ye-AMCU ithe izawuya phaa ebantwini kwaye emva kwemizuzu engamashumi-30 iphinde ibuye kwakhona nengxelo. Into endingayiqondiyo leyo.
Voorsitter, ek het die vraag gehoor dat daar die samenspreking met die polisie is, nie met mine management nie.
I had the question to be a discussion with the mine management and not with the police. Mr. Chair.
Ndaba nengxelo ke ngoku ingxoxo kunye
Yes, no, but that's not the point. The point is that Brigadier Karlitz reported to the JOC at 13:25, according to note 1010, what appears here, and that indicated that the AMCU people promised the people on the copy that they would be back after half an hour with the mine management. That you people in the JOC knew at 13:25, the very moment you decided to proceed with the plan, the tactical option. Now, I have difficulty understanding. That's why I put my problem to you, so you can help me to understand it.
Into endingayiqondiyo ke ngoku le nto bayibhalwe phaa nguBrigadier Karlitz kuthiwa yenzeke emva kwama-25 apho kwakuthiwa ke ngoku abantu bathenjiswa entabeni into yoba kuzobuyelwa kubo emva kwemizuzu 30 apho kuthiwa ke ngoku kwathenjiswa into yobana kuzawuziwa nabaphathi. Ingathi ke loo nto yayiseyisaziwa phaa eJokom, kodwa into endixakayo into yoba ingathi nathatha isigqibo into yoba nizawungena kwelinye inqanaba lesicwangciso senu.
Voorsitter, is reg, ons was bewus daarvan.
True, Chairperson, we are aware of that.
Inyani leyo sasinolwazi ngaloo nto leyo.
Isn't it correct, General, that you'd in fact made the decision to go tactical? Well, you said at about 1:15. So by the time you received this situation report, you had already made the decision to go tactical and you were going to go ahead with that regardless. Isn't that correct?
Uthi ke ngoku uyavumelana into yoba ke ngoku ngeli xesha ke ngoku nithatha isigqibo sokuba nizawungena ke ngoku kwiphulo kunyathelo lephulo lina nisenifumene ingxelo enjalo nazixelela into yobana noba nivile into enjalo kodwa nizawuqhubeka ngale nto nizawuyenza.
Voorsitter, nee, ek het verduidelik dat die operasionele bevelvoerder, die oomblik as so 'n plan ten uitvoer gebring word, dan word daai oordrag gedoen aan die operasionele bevelvoerder.
I explained, Chairperson, that such information would be carried over to the operational commander. That he would decide.
For the execution of the plan.
For the execution of the plan.
Ndithe ke ingxelo enjalo yayigqithiselwa ke operational commander ibe nguye ozawuthi ke ngokuba ngokuthatha inyathelo apho kuzokwenza into ephaa kwisicwangciso.
Dat die oordeel van sodanige optrede word dan oorgelaat aan die operasionele bevelvoerder sou omstandighede sodanig verander dat dit net ten uitvoer gebring moet word nie.
That any changes would then be in the hands of the operational commander if there were any changes that were taking place.
Utshintsho lento bakho okanye lenzeke into eyayizawuxhomekeka kwinkumanda le yayongameleyo apho kwi-operation into eyisenzeka.
En so was dit dan ook gewees dan om 15:30 toe die planne aanvang moes neem wat dit nie begin het nie weens die teenwoordigheid steeds van meneer Matunwa.
And as a result, the operation which was to commence at 15:30 did not take place then because of the presence of Mr. Matunja.
Ngeso sizathu ke ngoku nento kwakufuneka yenzeke ngecala emva kwentsimbi yesithathu zange yenzeke ngenxa yobukho ke bukamhlekazi uMathunjwa.
So 'n plan kan op enige stadium nog gestop word in terme van terugvoer vanaf die operasionele bevelvoerder of die besluit van die operasionele bevelvoerder gegee die omstandighede wat afspeel voor sodanige persoon.
Such a plan can always be stopped at any time depending on the directions given by the operational commander, depending on circumstances existing there.
Siyakwazi ukumiswa ke sicwangciso ke lonto iye ixhomekeke phaa kwinkumanda le iphethe iphulo ukuba ke ubakho utshintsho apha kwemeko.
I think he said depending on the feedback that he receives from
yeah, depending on the feedback.
Lonto iye ixhomekeke kakhona nakwingxelo abayifumanayo.
Voorsitter, en so oordrag kan van beide kante af wees. Het sy terugvoer vanaf die operasionele bevelvoerder of dan uiteraard uit die JOC of van die oorhoofse bevelvoerder weer na die oorhoofse na die operasionele bevelvoerder toe.
Such feedback can be from any side. It can be from the operational commander, from the JOC, or from the overall commander.
Ke ngoku lo ngxelo ingaba ingxelo ephuma ke ngoku phaa ku-JOC okanye kunkomanda yongameleyo okanye leyo yongamele iphulo elo.
General, I put it to you that if you had truly believed that Mr. Matunjwa could persuade the strikers to lay down their arms and go back to work, you would not have made the decision to go tactical while he was still addressing them and before you had received a report. Would you like to comment on that?
Ukuba nina nanikholwa nyani into ba uzawukwazi ukubabongoza abantu umhlekazi uMathunjwa naningasoze nithathe isigqibo sokuba ke ngoku ningene ke ngoku kuyinqanaba eli lenu lokuthatha unyathelo ningekafumani nokufumana ingxelo evela kuye.
Voorsitter, ons het so geglo op die 15de, die veranderings op die 16de was sodanig dat en meneer Mathunjwa se eie erkenning wat hy gemaak het aan kolonel McIntosh wat hy gesê het dat hy beheer verloor het oor sy mense.
The decision was already made on the 15th, Chairperson, as a result of an admission that was made to Colonel McIntosh by Mr. Mathunjwa himself that he has lost control over his people.
Isigqibo sasesithathiwe ke ngoku ngomhla wo-15 ngenxa yento wayithetha ku Colonel McIntosh yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa into ba ngoku uphulukene kanye akasakwazi ukuthi alawule abantu.
But General, one of the reasons you gave for why the police had to adopt the tactical phase on the 16th of August was that not even Mr. Mathunjwa could persuade his members to lay down their arms. But yet, when you made that decision, you'd not yet given him an opportunity to do so or received a report back. Isn't that correct?
Uthesinyisa sento ba kaloku woyisakala naye waphanza ekuzameni ukubongoza abantu babeke phansi izixhobo kodwa zange nimnike nethuba xa yothana abantu ba makabuye nengxelo nathatha isigqibo senu kunjalo.
Voorsitter, nee, hy het al interaksie gehad met sy lede voor die besluit geneem was, so vroeg as net na 12.
Chairperson, no, he had a consultation with his people just after 12 before this decision was made.
Waba nendibano kunye nabantu ke bakhe phambi kwentsimbi ye-12 kwakungaphambi koba isigqibo esilolu hlobo ke sithathwe.
En verdere geleentheid was aan hom gegee en die plan kon op enige stadium sou daar positiewe draai gewees het in terme van potensieel van neerlê van wapens kon dit nog steeds gestop word.
And the plan was still subject to changes if there was an indication if he had succeeded, for instance, in asking his people to lay down their arms. The plan could have been changed at any stage.
So I'm sorry to interrupt and go back for a moment. Did you say that a decision was taken the previous night?
Ndifuna ukuqonda into ke ngapha kuwe uthe isigqibo sathathwa ngobusuku bemini yayizolo engezolo.
Nee, voorsitter, ek sê die vorige aan die 15de was ons vas oortuig dat meneer Mathunjwa die sodanige invloed het op sy lede dat hulle sou wapens neerlê.
No, what said, Mr. Chairperson, is that the evening of the 15th, we were convinced that Mr. Mathunjwa would be successful in having his people lay down their arms.
Ndebinsithi ke mna sasiqinisekile into ba ke ngokuthi nangokuhlwa pha nge-15 into ba wayeza ukwazi ukubongoza ke umhlekazi Mathunjwa abantu into babeke phansi izixhobo.
But the transcript of what happened on the 15th when Mr. Mathunjwa spoke to the police was one ends on a note of almost of jubilation and congratulation. Are you saying that that congratulation was not sincere? That in fact you didn't believe him, that he could do what he said he was going to try to do?
Ngokuboniswa ingathi kuvuyiswana kunye naye unqonelela ke wempumelelo ufuna ukuthi ngamanye amazwi naningamkholelwa kule nto wayesithi uzawuyenza.
Nee, inteendeel voorsitter, ons was vas oortuig. Ek het gesê dit op die 16de dit verander.
No, Chairperson, the contrary, we were convinced that he was going to. I'm talking of the 16th.
What decision was made on the 15th then?
Uthi ke ufuna ukwazi isigqibo ke esisenziwa nge-15 ngoba yena uthetha ngento yange-16 ugeneral.
Voorsitter, ek weet nie waarna jy verwys nie.
I stood you a few minutes ago to say, I actually thought you said it and I wasn't sure, so I put it to you again and said, did I understand you correctly to say the decision was made on the 15th? And you said yes. And I said, why on the 15th? And you said, no, well, we didn't believe that Mathunjwa could do what he said he was going to do. That was your evidence as I understand it. Unless I misunderstood it, in which case I apologize.
I must say I have that understanding as well. The decision was made on the 15th, and it had to do with Mr. Mathunjwa's own admission to McIntosh. Perhaps that he'd lost control of it.
Nee, voorsitter, dit was op die 16de gewees, so
No, that was on the 16th, Chairperson.
Tydens die voorligting wat brigadier Kalitz en al die bevelvoerders ontvang het in daai tyd op die 16de en moes min of meer so 14:30 gewees het wat meneer Mathunjwa met kolonel McIntosh gepraat het.
That was on the 16th, Mr. Spent, about 14:30 when Mr. Machunja
I'm sorry,
spoke
mate,
to
I don't
Brigadier
understand
Khaled.
it. I thought you said the 15th. I was surprised at that. That's why I specifically asked you, did I understand you correctly? And I repeated it, and I said the 15th, and you said yes. Did you misunderstand me, perhaps?
Kweli xesha ingathi buthile into yesigqibo ike yathathwa ngomhla we-15 njengoba wena usithi umuntu watsho nge-16 yena ke into bakasakwazi ukuthi alawula abantu umhlekazi uMathunjwa ngeli xesha bendikubuza umbuzo ufuna ukuthi khange unive kakuhle.
Voorsitter, nee, die enigste verwysing wat na die 15de gemaak het was die aand wat ons vasgeglo het dat meneer Mathunjwa sodanige beheer het dat die lede dit sal neerlê.
The only reference I made to the 15th chairperson was when we were so convinced that Mr. Machunja would be able to have his people lay down their arms.
Into ebendithethe ngayo umhla we-15 kube ndisithi sasiqinisekile into yoba uzawuphumelela ekubongozeni abantu yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa into yoba babeke phantsi izixhobo.
En op die 16de dit verander en dan die bevestiging was ook gewees toe meneer Mathunjwa self aan kolonel McIntosh die oordrag gemaak het.
The change came on the 16th, Mr. Chairperson, when Mathunjwa made the admission to Colonel McIntosh.
Utshintsho ke ngoku lenzeka phaa ngomhla we-16 apho ke ngoku kwavuma yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa phaa kuMcIntosh.
What time is this conversation between Mr. Mathunjwa and Colonel McIntosh?
Kwakungabani ixesha ngeli xesha wayethetha noColonel McIntosh yena umhlekazi uMathunjwa.
Commissaris, dit was nie tyd gewees wat Luitenant-kolonel Scott en die bevelvoerders by Forward Holding Area 1 besig was met die briefing, sodat ek aanvaar het moes min of meer so tussen 14:30 en selfs 15 uur gewees het.
It could have been any time between 14:30 and 1500 hours, the time when Colonel Scott and Colonel Scott was briefing Brigadier Khaled and commanders, Mr. Chairperson. This was at FH1.
Uthi ke ngoku bekunoba phakathi kwexanduva kwentsimbi yesibini yotsho kwintsimbi yesithathu ngeli xesha uLieutenant Scott wayenika ingxelo ke kwinkomanda kunye nakuBrigadier Khalid aba babekwindawo ebizwa iFHA1.
Were you present during this conversation?
Ngeli xesha ke babe nodliwanondlebolu wena wawukhona?
Nee, ek was nie, voorsitter.
No, I wasn't, Chairperson.
Hayi ndandingekho.
Forward Holding Area 1, as I understand it, the witness is in the jock. Obviously, Lieutenant Colonel McIntosh must have reported it to him later. I take it.
I'm just trying to clarify where he got the information from. Who reported this to you?
Ndifuna ukwazi into yoba wena wayixelelwa ngubani loo nto nguye wazokuxelela?
Voorsitter, sover ek kan onthou was dit met die terugkeer van Papa 1 Brigadier Khaled.
I think it was at the time, the return of Papa 1 and Khaled.
Ndicinga kwakungeli xesha kwaku ekubuyeni ukaPapa 1 ke uBrigadier Khaled.
I'm going to move on to another topic now.
Funa sigqithele komnye umba ke ngoku.
And this relates to evidence that you've given regarding the Provincial Commissioner's media briefing on the 16th of August.
Le ke ngoku umba enzawufuna ukuba siwushikuxa apha kungengxelo ke ngoku eyanikwa ngucommissioner wephondo enika onondaba nge-16.
That would have been early in the morning at about 9:30 on the 16th of August. Now, in relation to that, you were asked, well, in fact, you gave the following evidence. You said that during the Provincial Commissioner's briefing, she was asked by one of the journalists whether any arrests had been made at Marikana. And she answered that, yes, 6 people had been arrested. And you then said that those arrests, I'm not sure whether this is your information or you were reporting what the Provincial Commissioner had said, but the point is that you stated that those arrests were not necessarily linked to the murder of the police officers on the 13th of August. Are you with me?
Ke ukho ixesha into wayibuzwayo ke ngeli xesha busithi wayikhupha ingxelo konondaba ucommissioner wephondo xa ebuzwa ke ngoku ngabantu ababanjiweyo na ngomhla we-16 yena kwangecala emva kwentsimbi yethoba apho wathi yena ewe kho abantu abathandathu ababanjiweyo kodwa wathi ke aba bantu abo ingathi ayinanto loo nto yokubanjwa kwabo ayinanto kwenza nokubulawa kwamapolisa ngomhla we-13 sisesonke.
Dis korrek, voorsitter.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo sihlalo.
So was that the information that you had on the 16th of August, that the 6 arrests did not necessarily relate to the murder of the 2 police officers on the 13th?
Into ivileyo na lento kuba ukubanjwa kwezithandathu akunanto kwenza nokubulawa kwamapolisa amabini phange 13.
Voorsitter, ja, soos ek het onthou was daar 'n vraag gevra aan die provinsiale kommissaris of dit al enige arrestasies uitgevoer is ten opsigte van die moorde wat plaasgevind het.
As far as I remember, Chairperson, the question asked from the provincial commissioner was that any arrest that had been made in connection with the murders.
Ukuba nikhumbula kuhle umbuzo wabuzwa ke pha ku-commissioner report into yoba ngokubhekiselene ke ekubulaweni kwabantu akukho bantu abakhe babanjwa abesebanjiwe na.
En dat soos ek het verstaan het, was die 6 arrestasies nie noodwendig nie. Dit kan beteken dit was nie eers enigsins verbind met die polisie moorde nie. Dit kan net wees 'n kombinasie van enige van die 9 moorde op daai stadium, of was 10 moorde.
As I understood it, Chairperson, the arrest of the 6 people could have been a combination of any of, at that time there were about 10 people.
I think you mean 8, because two of the 10 were actually 3 of the strikers were civilian. Sorry, 3 of the 10 people who died were civilians. 2 of them appear to definitely have been strikers who were killed on the 13th, and then there was the 3rd civilian who was found stabbed in front of one of the houses in the informal settlement on the same day. So the ones that I think you would regard as murders that you're talking about would be the 7, I would think. But it's just a detail. But 10 can't be the right number. But am I correct?
Nangona ke ngokuthethwa ke uku ephendule wathi yena kwakuthethwa ngabantu abachaphazeleke ekubuleni kwabantu kusuka kwexesha lokubula ukuqala uyotsho kwemuntu weshumi. Unto ambuzayo sihlala into yobana awunawuthi na into yoba ngenxa babanye bengabasebenzi uthetha ngabantu abasixhenxe na.
Voorsitter, soos ek het gehad het,
As I had
dit
it,
arrestasies verbonde aan enige van die sterftes, enige van die 10 persone.
As the arrests were
Het sê dit stakers, sekuriteitsbeamptes,
in connection with one or the other of the death of the 10 people that were mentioned at the time, either strikers or civilians.
Ukubanjwa kwabantu ke kwaku nento kwenza nokusweleka kwabantu ke ngoku kungakhathaliseki into yoba abo bantu yengabaqhankqalazi okanye ingobani kodwa ngenxa yabantu abalishumi abo baswelekayo.
So you were not told, General, that 6 people had been arrested for the murder of 2 police officers on the 13th?
Zange uxelelwa okanye nixelelwe into yobana ke ngoku abantu babanjelwa nto echaphazelana nokusweleka amapolisa amabini phaa ngalamhla we-13.
Voorsitter, nee, dis nie hoe ek het onthou nie.
No, that's not how I remember, Chairperson.
Hayi andikhumbuli ngaloo ndlela okanye ngolo hlobo.
I'd like to introduce a docket as a new exhibit. It is in the part of the SABC hard drive under dockets. It's docket 118
It looks as
of
if we
August.
can use exhibit triple G 38, which we used on Friday and then discarded. Thank you. So we've been given 2 documents. The first is headed crime document, or is this all part of the same?
I believe it is all part of the same
I see.
docket. It's
Very
just
well.
been put together in 2 bundles.
But the top bundle, as it were, begins with a page headed South African Police Service crime docket. So that will be, and that's been very thoughtfully paginated for us. So that's exhibit GGG 38.
Obumnqanda buzobizwa ke ngoku triple G 38 yidokethe ke ngoku le yamapolisa.
Ms. Barnes, I assume this was all one document, but I noticed, because Advocate Henright has drawn my attention to it, that the second batch of documents, which is separately stapled, the pagination begins again at 1. So it does look as if it's 2 documents, separately paginated. Unless the paginator made a mistake and just went over.
Yes,
Can you
I'm
help me on that?
afraid I had intended for it to be paginated as one document, but I'm afraid that wasn't done.
The best laid plans of mice and men gang off to glee. So what we will do is we'll call the whole document Exhibit Triple G 38, and possibly the kind person who paginated them incorrectly can have another go during the tea time at repaginating the documents in the second bundle, stapled bundle. Is that correct? Is that the sensible way to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Olu xwebhu ke bazawadibanisa omabini kodwa lizawubizwa u-triple G 38.
Case dockets, I don't know. Sorry? CAS? Okay, sorry, let me get this down. Case docket, CAS 118/8/2012. Yeah, that's what we need, I think. Yeah.
Now you'll see, General, that this is in fact the docket which relates to the arrest of the 6 people that we've been referring to. You'll see on the very last page of the second bundle. So it's the very last page of the combined bundle that you have in front of you. There's a reference to accused number 1 and 2. Do you see that?
Xa sijonga kolu
That
xwebhu
will be
lesibini.
page, I'm sorry to interrupt, that will be page 79 of the overall bundle.
Yes, that's correct.
Kuthiwa ke ngoku kulapho kuthethwa kubhalwe ke ngabatyholo ababini apha.
Ek neem dit waar, voorsitter.
I noted, Chairperson.
Ewe ndiyayibona sihlalo.
And then on page 25, this will accord with your pagination. It's part of the first section. That deals with accused numbers 3 and 4. It sets out their personal details.
Ke xa sijonga apha ke ngoku apha kwelinye iphepha kuthethwa ngomtyholwa wesithathu nowesine nalapho ke ngoku kukho iinkcukacha zabo.
Voorsitter, ek sien dit is verwysend na een persoon.
I see, Chairperson, it refers to one person.
Mna ndibona nje ingathi ithetha ngomntu omnye, kubhalwe ngomntu omnye.
On page 25, there's a reference to accused number 3, and then below that, there's reference to another person as accused number 4.
Pha phezulu kubhalwe ke ngomtyholwa wesithathu kodwa ezantsi xa ujongile kuthethwa ngomtyholwa wesine.
Mqinwa and Zukululu.
Ek was
You
in
see
die tweede
that?
bundel geweest, die tweede ene geweest. Ek
I was
sien
in
die
the
eerste
wrong
bundel, bladsy
bundle.
25,
On page 25, I see,
verwysend na 2 persone.
refers to 2 people, yes.
Ewe ndiyalibona ke uphepha ile kuthethwa ngabantu ababini.
And then on page 9, there is the reference to accused numbers 5 and 6.
Kuphepha ke ngoku lethoba sibona apho kuthethwa ke ngoku ngommangalelwa wesihlanu nowesithandathu.
Merk op 2 persone 5 en 6.
I see 2 people, yes, 5 and 6.
Ewe ndiyabona ke bakhankanyiwe abantu ababini lo wesihlanu nowesithandathu.
If you go to page 19, you'll see that there's a statement from the investigating officer in the case, a Constable Mafora.
Siyabona ke ngoku apha kuyiphepha u19 kukho intetho statement somcuphi uConstable Mafura.
And he says in the second paragraph, he says 4 suspects that are hospitalized, and he refers to 4 suspects, and he then says linked to the strike and killing of police officers that took place at Lonman Platinum Mine, Marikana. Do you see that?
Apho athetha ke ngoku ngabarhanelwa abane ke ngoku abalaliswe esibhedlele uthi ke ngoku bayachaphazeleka ekubulweni kwamapolisa kwakunye noqhankqalazo luphayo eMarikana. Uyayibona loo nto?
Merk dit op, voorsitter.
I noted, Chairperson, yes.
Barnes,
You want-
I'm
yeah,
sorry
Jane?
to have to say this again, but we did ask for documents that can be used in cross-examination to be made available to us beforehand. If we'd got them on Friday, we could have spent some of the weekend studying them and then be on top of the documents, and it would save a lot of time. I understand things happen sometimes in practice. You can't always comply with these rulings, but please endeavour in the future to do so. And that
Indeed.
applies to everybody, not just you.
Chair, but I must say, in our defence, we did circulate an index on Thursday last week, which did make reference to
we
this
didn't
document.
get it, and we've made it practice not to look at the documents that have not been put before us. So we are inconvenienced, but never mind.
Chair, I
I've
do
said- I've
apologise.
said
I
what
will
I-
make sure
what
it doesn't happen again.
Yes, thank you. And you can only promise on behalf of yourself, but the others present must listen and silently assent to what you said.
General, if you could go then to page 7. This is an additional statement by Constable Mafora. And he says the following, 4 lines into his statement. He says 6 suspects was identified to be present and commit murder of the 2 police officers during the strike or march. Out of 6 suspects, 4 was hospitalized due to injuries they sustained and could not stand for trial or appear before the court as they are still ill.
Kukhona ufutshana apha kubhalwe khona into yoba ke ngoku abanye abarhanelwa ngaba bandakanyekayo ke ngoku ekubulaweni kwamapolisa amabini kuthiwa ke ngoku abanye ngenxa yeba bonzakele kwaye babe sesibhedlele babe ngenawukwazi into yoba bayovela kwinkundla kamantyi.
So what emerges from this docket is that all these 6 people were linked to the murder of the 2 police officers. They're in fact charged with murder and robbery. 4 of them were arrested in hospital while they were in hospital on the 13th of August. 1 was arrested at home on the 13th of August, and 1 was arrested at his home on the 14th of August. That was early the following morning on the Tuesday.
Xa sijongile ke ngokufutshane kaba beberhanelwa ke ngokubulaweni kamapolisa ango utsho wachaza ke nokuba bonke babanjwa kwindawo ezahlukeneyo phi na.
Is it correct then that you did not have this information on the 14th, 15th or 16th of August?
Inyani into yoba ke ngoku naningenalwazi oluhlobo ke ngomhla we-14 nange-15 nange-16 ka-Agasti.
Voorsitter, ek het getuig dat die oordrag van die provinsiale kommissaris het ek nie noodwendig verstaan dat dit 6 arrestasies is nie polisie nie. Ek kan net daarby hou.
I'll stand by what I said, that the briefing by the provincial commissioner was that the 6 people arrested were not connected to necessarily the death of the 2 policemen.
Ndisamile ke kulanto benisithi ithethwe ngukommissioner wephondo into yokuba ke ngoku ukubanjwa kwesithandathu akunanto kwenza nokubulawa kwamapolisa phanga lamhla we-13.
General, you testified that you were in the JOC on the afternoon of the 16th of August from 3:30 p.m. until 5 p.m. And that you were there throughout, apart from when you stepped outside at various times within that period in order to take 3 phone calls. Is that correct?
Uthi ke ngoku phanga lamhla ke ngoku ukusukela ngecala emva kwentsimbi yoqala yotsho ngentsimbi yesihlanu wawukhona phaa nangona uthi wawuphaa kujoko ngaphandle kwala maxesha wawumane ngokuphuma kuyophendula umnxeba imfonomfono kunjalo?
Voorsitter, nee, ek het nie gesê 3 oproepe nie, ek het gesê ek 2 of 3 keer het ek uitgegaan, so dit kon 2 oproepe gewees het, kon 3 gewees het.
Did not say 3 calls. I said I was out on 2 or 3 occasions. Could have been 2 or 3 calls that I received.
Khange ndithi ke ngoku ndiphendule imfonomfono kwade kwakathathu ndithe ndiphume mhlawumbi kwakathathu kodwa ngenzeka into yoba ke ngoku ndiye ndaphendula imfonomfono kabini okanye kathathu.
So you're not sure whether it was 2 or 3 calls?
Ngoku awuqinisekanga into yoba ke ngoku uye watsalula umnxeba kabini okanye kathathu.
Voorsitter, nee, ek is nie.
No, I'm not, Chairperson.
Andiqinisekanga.
Who were those calls from?
Kubani ke lo wayekutsalela umnxeba?
Ek kan nie onthou nie, voorsitter.
I do not remember, Chair.
Andisakhumbuli.
You testified that during the time that you were receiving reports from the chopper, this is during the afternoon of the 16th, that there were 2 women constables who were taking handwritten notes as the information came in. Is that correct?
Uthi ke ngoku ngala mini ubungqina bakuthe kwakukho ke ngoku ingxelo yayivela phaa kwinqwelontaka apho ke ngoku amanenekazi ke amapolisakazi amabini ayebhala into ezasenzeka apha ingxelo kunjalo?
Voorsitter, is verwysend na die 2 radio-operateurs, ek dink hulle was beide constables.
This was with reference to the 2 radio operators. I think there were 2 lady constables.
Ke ndithe ngexesha ke ukube sithetha ngaba bebesebenza bona konomathotholo bendithe ke yayinga mabhinqa amabini.
Can you give us their names?
Ndingasixelela amagama abo bangobani?
Voorsitter, nee, ek weet nie wat hulle name is nie.
Chairperson, no, I don't know what their names are.
Andiwazi amagama abo.
And the notes that they kept, where would we find those notes at this stage?
Into ke ngoku yonke bayibhala apho bayibhale khona ezinkcukacha xa singazifumana phi into ezinjalo.
Voorsitter, ek weet nie, ons sal by hulle moet verneem of hulle die notas beskikbaar het en of hulle het oorgedra het in die VB en dit nie daarna gehou het nie, ek weet glad nie.
Chairperson, I don't know. We could inquire from them as to whether they have the notes or whether they were put into the occurrence book.
Andazi ke
Or whether they kept them after they reflected the information on the occurrence book.
andazi into yoba ke ngoku mhlawumbi bona bangakwazi ukutsho into yokubana babhala ngela xesha okanye bathi babhala ezo zinto enziveni uba bebhale kwincwadi yeziganeko leyo.
You'll agree that those notes will assist us in order to have a more accurate record of what transpired. Is that correct?
Uvumelana ke ngoku into yoba into eziqulathwe kulo maxwebhu zingasinceda into yoba sibe nolwazi sicacele into yoba kwenzeka ntoni. Kunjalo?
Dit is korrek, voorsitter.
That is correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo sihlalo.
Thank you, Chair. Those
It's
are
now
our
quarter
questions.
past 11. Is this perhaps a convenient stage for us to take the adjournment, or do you wish to ask a few more questions on this point before we adjourn?
No, Chair, we are done with our cross-examination.
I see. Well, that's a very convenient stage to take the adjournment.
Uthi ugqibile ukubuza imibuzo.
He's not here.
He's here. He's there at the back.
Oh, he's back. I see. Very well. Well, we'll take adjournment now. It's quarter past 11. We take the tea adjournment at this stage.
Sisayophunga ngoku mawethu.
Brigadier Mkunazi, who was questioned about the plan. And you remember that one of the points of criticism of some of the experts is it was a mistake for a public order policing operation to be the subject of a plan drawn by someone from the SDF. And that was the basis of the criticism, and I think still is, from the experts. And certainly, as far as I can recall, when Brigadier Mkunazi was giving evidence, this was freely referred to by cross-examining counsel as being the Scott plan. And that's where Mr. Semenya got this expression, the so-called Scott plan, and the witness then tried to explain why so-called was a useful word to use in front of the expression Scott plan for the reasons he gave.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I want to converse with the witness because I want to make submissions later on that it's important that there shouldn't be any doubt as to who was the author of the plan and why it was significant and why the outcome would have been different had the author of the plan been somebody else. That's the piece.
Perfectly at liberty to put questions along those lines to the witness. I was afraid that we were getting bogged down. The needle was sticking in the groove on the so-called Scott plan point, and I was trying to enable you to move on to the points that you obviously are going to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Into afuna ke ukuyibuza ke u-senior counsel uba untsebeza into kuba ngakumbi kuthena kwakuzobakho iziphumo ezingezinye ukuba umuntu ke wenze isicwangciso esi yayingumuntu omnye yayingomnye umuntu.
Now, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. My own sense is that Scott, in his statement, identifies two situations, and he speaks to those two situations. In the first one, he talks really about what has come to be known as an operational strategy and a mission. And if we go to his statement and read paragraphs 8 and 9 of his statement.
In fairness, you should give the witness the exhibit number so he can find it in his file, and then he can turn to paragraphs 8 and 9 and be able to converse with you along the lines you wish him to converse.
You're looking for Scott's
exhibit? Yes, exhibit.
F18.
I'm told
F18.
Triple F18. You'll bear with me, Mr. Chairman. Have you got the passage? Do you see that, General?
Voorsitter, ek het net Luitenant-kolonel Scott se addisionele verklaring, ek het nie sy oorspronklike verklaring nie.
Chairperson, I do not have his original statement. I've got this Colonel Scott's additional statement.
Maar ek het hom nou ontvang.
But I've since received it. Thank you.
Ewe ndinaso phambi kwam.
Now, it seems to me if you read paragraph 8, and 9, paragraphs 8 and 9, you do get the sense that at that stage, it talks about an operational strategy and the mission. And he says why he was putting that forward. Do you see that?
Xa ujonga pha ku-8 ke no-9 uthetha ke ngendlela kwephulo labo abazawusebenzisa ngalo ubuchule babo okwesibini nenyathelo abaza kulithatha xa usifunda zombini ezi paragraph uyayibona loo nto.
Now, for instance, in paragraph 8, before you answer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. On the 10th line from 8, he says the following: I presented the following strategy to the JOG senior management for approval. SABC will enter into dialogue with the protesters, given an opportunity for a non-technical resolution. SABC will protect life and property should the need arise by responding proportionally to such force. And thirdly, SABC will exercise caution to protect its members without provoking aggression from the protesters. Then in paragraph 9, he says, I thereafter propose the SABC mission, which would provide the guidelines for the operational deployments to achieve the desired outcome, namely, a combined SAPS force will restore stability to the Lone Min mine area in Marikana from 14 August 2012 by deploying proactively with a visible show of force, isolating the transgressing group and ensuring an orderly processing of gatherers to extract weapons and identify suspects involved in the unrest. The mission was accepted and adopted by the SAPS senior management of the JOC.
Ndawasanda ufunda kuyo ke ngoku yinto okubana wayethe yena ethitheni kwakhe yinto okubana ke ngoku kwindlela ke ngoku abazawuthi benze ngayo ke ngoku indlela wachaza ngayo wayefuna ke ngoku izowunika imvume yona bona abaphathi ababepha kujok ngokufutshane ethetha into yoba indlela abazawuthi basebenze ngayo bangaxhokonxi ke abaqhankqalazi into yobana babe ndlongondlongo kodwa wacebisa nendlela okanye imigaqo efuneka ilandelwe apho bebesithi bazawubonisa amandla wabo kwaye bazohlukanisa ingakumbi abo kuthiwa babe nezixhobo ke ezinobungozi ke uthi loo nto phaa kujok yaye yamkeleka yaba yinto eyamkelekileyo akubaphathi.
Now before you answer, I want you to look at paragraph 8, where he says, I concluded an appreciation of the environment incorporating the background information I had been given during the course of the night and reflected the policy's views on how to deal with the situation as was discussed that evening. Now, what I want to put to you is that to the extent that there was other participation by police officers, it was to the extent of the formulation of the operational strategy and mission, as is captured in paragraphs 8 and 9. Nothing more.
Uthi ke njeba kucacile xa sifunda paragraph 8 no 9 ke amanye amapolisa ayathatha inxaxheba ngakumbi ngoku kwakwenziwa ke ngoku indlela abaceba indlela yobuchule abazawuyisebenzisa nenyathelo abazothi balithatha hayi enye into engenye.
Voorsitter, Kolonel Scott het deurgangs verwys na homself in terme van sy eie verklaring.
Chairperson, Colonel Scott referred to I, himself, in this statement. I.
En hy het nie die royal we gebruik soos wat ek verneem het advokaat Ntebeza het na verwys in terme van die kollektiewe verwysing na persone nie.
He did not use the pronoun we as
The royal we actually
royal
is
we.
Someone is actually speaking in the first person singular,
Yes.
but he puts it we, as the Queen does. That's why the royal we.
Yes, sir.
We decide this, and the Queen says it means I decided. But your point is he didn't use the first person plural. He used
didn't
the
use
first
the
person singular.
plural we that Mr. Advocate Nsebenza referred to as the royal we.
Right, Mr. Chairman.
Uthi ke into athethayo njembe ingathi ebonakala uthetha ngaye phaa Colonel Scott kodwa akathethi ngaye eyedwa ke ayi nguye kwisinye kodwa nguye kwisininzi xa besithi bona.
Voorsitter, ek het reeds omvattend daarna verwys en pertinent in die bewysstuk op bladsy 8228 en ek kan nie in detail daarin gaan nie.
I have pertinently referred to it, Mr. Chairperson, at page 8228. I will not get back again into this.
Bensenthethe ngayo pha kwiphepha u-822A8 anzophinda ndibuyele kuyo kwakhona.
Kolonel Scott was reeds op die maandag aan die 13de was hy aangewys om die beplanning te koördineer, so insette te versamel
Already
en te
on-
koördineer.
Already on the 13th of August, Mr. Chairperson, Colonel Scott was identified as the person that would coordinate information given,
I'm not listening to what you're saying, sorry.
coordinate all the information given already from the 13th of August.
Important word is not just information, but inputs. The witness spoke about
Inputs, yes, instead of
Inputs
information.
from
All the
other-
inputs
other-
gathered, he would
other people.
coordinate this.
Yes,
Into eyayigqitywe kusengumhla we-13 kaAgasti yinto yokuba uKenneth Scott ke nguye owayezawuthi adibanise yonke into ke ezawuthi ibe ligalelo lenziwayo apho.
Voorsitter, en die strategie en die missie was al dan reeds in terme van insette wat so vroeg ontvang is soos die maandag aand is
Die-
daaraan begin werk.
The strategy and the mission, Chairperson, was something that already from Monday, something that had been spoken of.
Le ithethwa ngayo ke ngendlela yabo yobuchule ke nenyathelo ezawuthathwa yinto kwakusethethwe ngayo ke ngomvulo leyo.
yes.
Dit was na aanleiding van 'n gesprek wat ons gehad het, nasionale kommissaris was teenwoordig, die provinsiale kommissaris, die
As a result of a discussion that we had
pertinente
there,
3 vergaderings op die maandag aand.
referring to the 3 pertinent meetings on Monday evening where the provincial commissioner was present and
National